Hello, welcome to the Women's Business Development Center's Beneficial Ownership Information, or BOI, webinar. We're glad you're here. Over the next 15 or 20 minutes, we're going to walk through the rules, whether they apply to you, and then watch a demo of how to actually file your BOI information. So BOI is a federal regulation that went into effect the beginning of January of 2024, and it requires companies to report information about the individuals who own or control them. The purpose of it is to prevent criminals or reduce the chances that criminals can hide behind LLCs and corporations. The registration is online. There is no charge to you to file. And unless there's a change, it's one and done. We'll talk more about pretty much all of these things as we go through today. So the first question you're asking yourself is, does this apply to me? And you're all hoping, no, it doesn't. And I'm unfortunately here to tell you that, yes, it probably does. Any corporation or LLC that was created in the United States by the Secretary of State or the similar agency in a state is basically subject to this law. It does not include sole proprietors, which kind of makes sense when you think about the fact that the cause of the law in the first place was to prevent criminals from hiding behind LLCs and corporations. And obviously, if you're a sole proprietor, you're operating in your own name. Even if you have filed some sort of DBA with your county clerk's office, the legal entity of the business is still you as a human being, and therefore it does not apply to you. Or if you're a tax-exempt entity, such as a 501c3, 501c6, any of those IRS 501cs. So here's just a way of thinking about whether this applies to you if you're more of a visual person. So the first question is, under what law was the company created? I'm not going to talk about foreign entities at all today, but under the, a United States law, such as the laws of the state of Illinois or the state of Delaware or some other state, is it a corporation? Yes. Is it an LLC? Yes. Were you created in some other strange or unusual way that similar? And I guess it's not strange to have a professional limited liability corporation. Those are common. But you're going to basically get caught up in this. So it says here may be a domestic reporting company. That's because there are very limited exceptions, such as, are you a bank? Are you an accounting firm? That excludes you from this. But for the vast majority of companies, you are a domestic reporting company, or in other words, you're subject to this law. So this is called the beneficial ownership information requirement. So who's a beneficial owner? There are two tests. You only have to meet one of them in order to have to report. Most small business owners will hit both, but it doesn't matter. You don't have to hit both. Just either one is enough. If you exercise substantial control of a company, or if you own 25% or more of a company. And what do those things mean? Let's talk about that. So substantial control of a company means someone who's either a senior officer, such as a C-suite, president, et cetera, or who does something similar to what a president does. So coming up with some cute new name to try to avoid this doesn't get you out of being defined as having substantial control. If you have the authority to appoint or remove a senior officer or a majority of the company's board, if you are some other type of important decision maker, and this just kind of depends on the type of business or industry you're in, or if you have any other substantial control of a company. I mean, they really have a very broad definition of this. So again, just, changing your name from president to chief, happiness officer isn't going to get you out of the definition of substantial control. And then what is an ownership interest? Again, this is a pretty broad set of definitions. So obviously stock ownership, but even like a profit interest, if you have some sort of convertible note interest, if you have options, if basically any way that you can be reasonably defined as having control of ownership rather of 25% or more of the company, you're going to be considered a beneficial owner. There are a few exceptions. Obviously, children don't report, but if a minor child is an owner, then the parent does. If someone is simply acting on behalf of the owner, like a tax person or an accountant or something like that, if the person is an employee owner, not a senior officer, but maybe they're part of an employee stock ownership plan or something like that, and their control or benefits are simply from being an employee, then they're exempt. Obviously, if you don't own it now, you just might inherit in the future once grandma dies. As long as grandma has not died, then you're not subject to this. Or if you're only a creditor. So there's also this concept of indirect ownership. So let's walk through what that means. Many companies are owned by not necessarily directly individuals, but by other companies, holding companies or the such. So let's look at an example here. We have a reporting company, and it's owned by company X and company Y. Company Y owns 40% of this reporting company, and company X owns 60%. So company X is owned by Sally and Robert, and you can see Sally owns 70 and Robert owns 30. And company Y is owned by Mary Jones, who owns 100% of it. So with respect to the reporting company, who are beneficial owners? Well, we just do some math. So Mary owns 100% of 40%, right? That's 40%. And Sally owns 70% of 60%, which is 0.7 times 0.6, which is 0.42 or 42%. And 42% and 40% are both bigger than 25%, right? So they have to report. Robert owns 30%. So 0.3 times 0.6 is 0.18, which is 18%. That is less than 25%. So Robert is not a beneficial owner of the reporting company. However, company X was also created with the Secretary of State somewhere, and therefore it has to report its beneficial owners, and Robert would be a beneficial owner of company X, as well as Sally. So there's also a term that is used in this process called company applicants, and that's somebody who is basically the worker here. So the lawyer, the paralegal, whoever who filed your paperwork for you when you created the company. If your company was created before January 1st of 2024, you do not need to report any company applicants. I think the theory of this is that, who knows who created the company in 1957 when grandpa formed it or whatever. That person might not even be alive anymore. Who knows? So you're exempted from that. But any company that was created on or after January 1st of 2024, you do have to report your company applicant. We'll talk more about that in a minute. So what is it that you have to report? With respect to the reporting company, you need the full legal name of the company. If you have a DBA or a trade name or a fictitious name, different states use different phrases, but basically, it's maybe the legal name of the company is, Goldner Inc., and the trade name or the DBA is, Karen's Ice Cream Store. You would report that. If you don't have a DBA, then you just leave that blank. You have a current US address of the company, okay? The state of formation. So it might be Delaware, it might be Illinois, it might be Minnesota, it could be any of the 50 states. I'm not going to talk about foreign companies, as I mentioned. In terms of the number that you need to report, it would just be the EIN for your business, okay? So there's really just 4 or 5 pieces of information, depending on if you have a trade name. Again, the full legal name of the company, a DBA if it exists, the address, the state of formation, and your EIN. With respect to each beneficial owner and company applicant, and I will say this, you are nowhere reporting your social security number, and you are nowhere even reporting the percent of ownership or anything like that of the company, okay? You are simply going to provide the information that's listed here. Your full legal name, your date of birth, your home address. Now, off to the side, I would say if you're a company applicant and, maybe you're a paralegal and you're working for some law firm and you're filing this paperwork for your client, you're just going to put your business address. But for owners, beneficial owners, whether it's because you're a CEO of the company or you own more than 25% or more of the company, it's going to be your home address. And then you're going to come up with either your passport, your driver's license, some other state or local or tribal ID. You're going to provide the number of that. So, your state driver's license number, your passport number, what have you. And then you're also going to have scanned the document and you're going to upload it. So when do I report? If you were created before January 1st of 2024, you have the whole year of 2024 to get this filed. If you were created in 2024, then you have 90 calendar days after the receipt of notice of filing. What this means is when you file with the Secretary of State, say, you typically don't get immediate response. There's a period of time, and depending on lots of things, it could be, a week, it could be longer, that you get notice that you have filed, right? That's the trigger. So it's 90 days after that date to get your BOI reporting done. After January 1st of 2025, you'll have 30 calendar days, okay? So going forward, it's just going to be one of those things that kind of gets put on the list of the paperwork that needs to be done when you create a new company. Where do you report? As I mentioned, it's an online process. It's through the FinCEN department, which is one of the U.S. Treasury agencies. You might imagine there's a fair amount of scamming out there. If you are not on the fincen.gov website and you need to look in your browser and make sure you're on a fincen.gov website, it doesn't say anything else on it. It's it doesn't say fincen123.org or anything like that. That's where you file. And you have a choice of either filing via a PDF that they, let you download, you fill out, you upload it, or you can do it directly online. Both of those get you to the same place. It's just a matter of what your preference is. And as I mentioned, this is one and done unless something changes. So updates are due within a month after the change occurs. It could be any number of changes. The common ones would be you have a new CEO, you have some change in ownership that impacts who owns 25% or more. You have a change to the beneficial owner's name or address, or unique identifying number. So like maybe a driver's license number changes or something like that. Address change seems to me to be the most common, most likely thing that you move as a person. But if none of those things happen, you don't have to worry about it. If one of the beneficial owners passes away, then 30 days after the settlement of the person's estate is when when the BOI needs to be filed, the updated BOI. And, until and unless that happens, nothing needs to be done. Okay, now we're going to watch a little demo from the FinCEN department that walks you through how to file the beneficial ownership.
Hello, I am with the U.S. Treasury Department Bureau called the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, or FinCEN. You may have heard about this new anti-money laundering law, the Corporate Transparency Act, that requires many companies doing business in the United States to report information to the U.S. government about the real people who own or control them. Today I'm going to show you how I would file a beneficial ownership information report. I'm going to start with the website fincen.gov/BOI. On the website, I can see some information that will help me determine if I need to file and what types of information I would need to provide. Let's say I'm an owner of a small business, ABC Inc., that I've recently formed with my Secretary of State. I've reviewed the small business resources on FinCEN's website and determined that my company is not exempt from reporting, so I will click here and file a report. The Beneficial Ownership Information Report, and today I'm going to select the option to file online using the web form. In the future, I may need to update or correct the BOI that I filed, so I can do that here by selecting the different options. Since this is my first time filing, I'm going to select Initial Report and then click Next. First, I'm going to enter the name of my company, ABC Inc. I don't have any alternative or DBA names, so I'm going to skip this field and then enter my number here. I formed this company here in the US, so I don't need to select anything here, but I will select the United States in field 10. I filed my paperwork in the state of Virginia, so I'll select Virginia and then enter the address, city, state, and zip. Next, I'll enter information about the company applicant. This is the person that actually filed my company formation information with the Secretary of State. The person that filed for my company is my tax accountant, so I'll be entering information here. I will enter last name, first name, date of birth, and business address. This form also requires the identification type, number, and where the document was issued from and a picture of the ID. I'll need to provide an image of the ID, so I'm going to click on Choose Folder and select Image and select Open. No other person was involved in the filing of the document that created my company, so I don't need to add any more company applicants. At most, 2 people may be reported as company applicants, and only companies that were created or registered in 2024 or later need to report company applicants. Finally, I'll move to the beneficial owner information part. Since I own this company, I'm going to enter my last name, first name, date of birth, and address. Similar to before, enter the identifying document number and upload an image. Because I am the only beneficial owner, that's all I have to do here, but if I had more beneficial owners, I would need to go up and click this button, Add a Beneficial Owner. Now that I'm on the last page, I'll enter my email, my first and last name, because I am submitting the report to FinCEN. Now I'll click here to certify that I am filing this beneficial ownership information report on behalf of the reporting company and that the information I provided is true, correct, and complete. And then I will select the CAPTCHA checkbox and prove that I am human. Ready to submit. It will take a few moments for the submission to go through, and now I see the confirmation page. It's important for me to download and save a copy for our records in case you need to refer to them again or if any problems or issues occur. And that completes the filing of the beneficial ownership information report.
So that demo is actually available on YouTube here at this link. There's also, as I mentioned, a lot of information from the federal government. FinCEN.gov/BOI is kind of the go-to page. There's small business resources. So I'm going to linger on this page for a minute if you want to just note down either of those first 2 videos. The third video on this list here is a much longer video. It gives you a lot more background on why the law exists. At minute 20-30 or so, it does do another e-file demo, although obviously this nice little one that we just showed you is probably the most helpful. So that is the end of the webinar. I do encourage you to either go to the WBDC's website, wbdc.org, and look in our programs and services in our digital learning. We have archived webinars, and that is where this webinar is housed. And also, again, strongly encourage you, if you have any questions, to look at the FinCEN website. For the vast majority of small businesses, everything you need to know is what I have said. If things are a little bit murky to you, if you have some sort of hedge fund that is an owner or something like that, then you may need to consult. First of all, I would suggest that you consult the FinCEN website, and then you may need to consult your own counsel. But hopefully this gets you through the process. The Women's Business Development Center is here to help. You can again reach out to us at wbdc.org. Thank you so much for your time. Bye-bye.